Hey everybody, Alex from SeemsGoodMagic.com here. Welcome to Volume 2 of the Eldritch Moon spoilers. First impressions. So if you haven't watched the first part of this series, I'm going to have that link in the video description, so be sure and check that out. I think I cover the first 30 or 40 spoilers in that. Now we have a whole lot more to go through, and I've learned some new things via a little bit of reading as well as commenters along the way. So I think, should we just cross that now? Sure. So there's meld cards. There's only going to be 3 meld cards in this set. Well, I guess technically it's 6 cards total, but you get what I'm saying. So meld is 2 cards, they're out on the battlefield. When they're both out on the battlefield, you exile them. Sometimes you have to activate it. Sometimes they just have to be on the battlefield together for a full turn, and it triggers on instep. And then they turn into 1 card. Yes, they turn sideways, and they turn into like a big card. It's very strange. Now, some interesting things happen when the cards meld together. If there's a card that says destroy target creature, both parts of the melded card are destroyed. So it's just, think of it as 1 creature because it attacks as a single unit and all of that. It's destroyed. But some kind of squirrely things happen when it's bounced, when it's exiled. So, for example, if you bounce it, both cards are returned to your hand. If you exile it, both cards are exiled face down. So, think of an effect that would exile it and then return it to the battlefield. Both cards would be returned to the battlefield face up. If something puts it on top of your library, you as the player get to choose which order. They both are put on top of your library in the order of your choosing. So we've got that. I think I also screwed up on a merge. A commenter mentioned this. So a merge is basically like a cheaper way an alternate way, I should say, to pay for a spell. So in the first volume, we looked at a 7 mana 3/4 flyer, and it had a merge for 5 colorless and a blue. You can sacrifice a creature and deduct that card's converted mana cost from the emerge cost. I was under the impression you could deduct the colored mana portion of that spell, but you cannot. So you still are always going to have to pay the colored mana portion of the emerge cost, but it does subtract a converted mana cost portion. Okay, now that we've cleared that up, we've got some cards to get through, so let's do this. First, we have Noose Constrictor, 1 and a green, 2/2 snake creature. It's an uncommon with reach. Discard a card, it gets +1/+1 until end of turn. Big fan of this card. We've got a great Madness Enabler, a way to get Delirium. It blocks flyers for a cheap cost. It's efficient. It gets bigger. It can finish your opponent when you have excess cards. It gives you a reason to sandbag lands. Excellent card. We're gonna be seeing a lot of this in Limited. Not so much in Constructed, unless Madness becomes a thing. It's basically the green Ravenous Bloodseeker. Next we have Fortune's Favor. So we have 3 and a blue instant. Target opponent looks at the top 4 cards of your library and separates them into a face-down pile and a face-up pile. Put 1 pile in your hand and the other into your graveyard. So isn't this sort of similar to Fact or Fiction? Remember, I'm like looking at these cards for the first time. So if I'm going over it, it's because I've not done a ton of prep on a lot of these cards. I've looked at these are from today, so I haven't even looked at these yet. So 3 and a blue, let's click on it. I'm sure Fact or Fiction is going to be, let's see the difference between this and Fact or Fiction. Fact or Fiction is reveal the top 5 of your library and opponent sets those into 2 piles, put 1 pile in your hand. This separates them into a face down pile and a face up pile. I see. So the difference is the face down pile, you don't know what you're getting. Wow. Now this is an interesting card. I like this. So it's 1 less card than Fact or Fiction, which is totally relevant. And you don't even get the choice. So it's certainly worse than Fact or Fiction in more than one way. However, I do like this card. I just imagine a scenario where my opponent shows me 2 face-up cards that are incredible, and all I'm thinking is, oh my god, what's in the other box? What's in the other box? So, very cool card. I think this could absolutely see some constructed play. I have no idea how powerful it is. It's a 4 mana, at worst it's 4 mana draw, 2. right? Your opponent's probably going to separate 2 and 2. They could do 1 and 3, but then you're at least drawing 3. So at worst, you're drawing 2 cards, which seems okay at 4 mana, not incredible. Yeah, I don't know what to think of this card. That's cool. I mean, Fact or Fiction was very powerful and certainly was constructed playable. So I don't know what my opinion of this is, but I feel like this definitely could make its way into Constructed if Fact or Fiction did. And Limited, I'm sure it will, absolutely. It goes into your graveyard, so it feeds your Delirium. It's very good. All right, next we have Dark Salvation, which is a black and 2x rare sorcery. Target player puts X 2/2 black zombie creature tokens onto the battlefield, then up to 1 target creature gets -1/-1 until end of turn for each zombie that player controls. This is cool. I like this card a lot. It's interesting that you can give any player the 2/2 zombies, so it's kind of like maybe, I don't know why you would want to give another player zombies exactly. Until in turn for each zombie that player controls. Wait, yeah, that seems strange that you'd want to give another player zombies, but this is a great card. So for 5 mana, you get 2/2 zombies, and you give a creature -2/-2. It's a very strong card. It scales well. Even a 3 mana 2/2 -1/-1 is good. So very powerful rare. It's going to have a ton of limited application. Seems like a very easy first pick rare in a lot of cases. I like it. Anytime you're scaling, generating creatures, and killing something, you're doing good. So yes, this will absolutely see a ton of limited play. Spell Queller. 1 a white and a blue, 2/3 flash flying rare spirit. When it enters the battlefield, exile target spell with converted mana cost 4 or less. When it leaves the battlefield, the exiled card's owner may cast that card without paying its mana cost. I like this card a lot. Wow, this is cool. So it's kind of like a Banisher Priest for spells. Convert mana cost 4 or less. I mean, they get it back, but I like this card a lot. Very cool. I definitely think this strikes me as a card that could absolutely see constructed play. Absolutely. A 2/3 flash flyer for 3, already good. So on top of that, exile their spell. So it uncounterable spells can be taken by this because it exiles. This card will absolutely see constructed play. I don't see how this couldn't. It's very versatile. It's going to see tons of limited play, and I definitely anticipate this card seeing constructed play. Definitely. Next we have Nahiri's Wrath. 2 and a red for a mythic sorcery. As an additional cost to cast Nahiri's Wrath, discard X cards. Nahiri's Wrath deals damage equal to the total converted mana cost of the discarded cards to each of up to X target creatures and or planeswalkers. Cards like this, and it's mythic, which is kind of weird. It doesn't feel like a mythic, does it? I'm not exactly sure why this card's mythic. So on top of paying the overhead cost of 3 mana at sorcery speed, you have to discard cards. So it does kind of feed madness, but if you're paying 3 on the top end, don't expect to really get madness payoffs very often. And it deals damage equal to, I mean, it can kill multiple things, which is good. But it comes at a one-time cost of discarding cards in your hand. So you're still trading 1 for 1 a lot of the time. And in some cases, you're going to be trading, most of the cases, in fact, all the cases, you're going to be using this and discarding more cards. So it's at least like you're going to be 2 for 3ing the bad side of that. I don't get why this is mythic. Maybe some commenter that has a bunch of upvotes has something better to say about it. It doesn't strike me as a mythic. Nope, someone's doing some sort of weird thing quote. I mean, you can't burn to a player. You can only burn a planeswalker or a creature. You can do it to up to X target creatures and or players. Wait a second. So you're just... Okay. I see. So if you discard 2 cards, yeah, you can deal it up to 2 creatures or planeswalkers. I don't know. Somebody maybe sees something crazier than I do. I mean, I think the card's fine for limited. I certainly don't think it's going to see constructed play. And I don't feel like I'd slam first pick it very often. But like I said, maybe somebody sees something I don't see with it. This effect doesn't strike me as particularly mythic or super powerful. but certainly playable in limited. Campaign of Vengeance. 3 colorless, a white and a black enchantment that's uncommon. Whenever a creature you control attacks, defending player loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. This card's sweet. Huge overhead cost on this, right? We've got 5 mana, but the fact that it comes out of nowhere, I really like this card a lot. In limited only, I don't think it's going to see constructed play at all. It's too expensive and doesn't do enough on its own. But in limited, I like the idea. If you've got a very creature-heavy deck, I can absolutely see this changing the game. On a stalled board state, when you have like 8 creatures, this could just end the game. I don't think it's a slam first pick. The fact that it's white and black makes it a little bit more narrow, let's say. But it's a cool card. I like it. Next, we have a foreign card that I can't read, so let's get the translation. Chaos Reveler. 6 and 2 red for a devil horror creature. That's a rare. And it costs 1 mana less to cast for each instant or sorcery card in your graveyard. Cool. It's got prowess. And when it enters the battlefield, discard your hand, then draw 3 cards. Okay. Cool card. Certainly if it's the last card you play, which it seems like it often will be as an 8 mana 3/4, you will hopefully just draw 3 cards off of it. So, yes, I like this card. A card like this, believe it or not, has the potential to make it to constructed. Doesn't seem super likely, I guess. If there's a way to feed your graveyard really fast and you have a ton of instants or sorceries, I could see it. But otherwise, not quite enough impact, and to get to 8 is pretty big. But definitely a cool card. I definitely will look forward to trying this out in limited in the blue-red spells deck, which is a deck I like a lot anyway. So, although that deck's going to get a lot worse if we only have 1 pack to get the Rise from the Tides. But like I said, I just drafted recently a Riseless Rise deck with Pyre Hounds and stuff, so not that big of a deal. Cool card. I can't say for certain. I don't think it's either a first pick, and I don't think it's super likely to make constructed. But it does have, like I said, it has maybe an option of making constructed, only because I'm looking at it almost like Delve, where if you have a way to just put a ton of instants or sorceries in your graveyard super fast, but then the best payoff you're getting is like a 2 mana 3/4 prowess, so probably just not going to make it to constructed. But limited, definitely, and I think it's a cool card for the spells deck. Okay, next we have Permeating Mass. 1 green for a 1/3 rare spirit. When it deals combat damage to a creature, that creature becomes a copy of Permeating Mass. So it seems like a great blocker. Turns their fatty creature into a 1/3, but the difference is they get a Permeating Mass. So then later they have that as a blocker, and your big creature gets to turn into a Permeating Mass. Sounds like a mess, doesn't it? But it's a cool card. I don't think it would be a slam first pick. It's basically, if you have a win con, if a lot of your win cons are flying, I could see this being a very good blocker. Otherwise, I don't think it's too crazy. It seems okay. It seems all right. If you give it first strike, you can turn them into a 1/3 before they deal their damage to it. So that's kind of weird too. Yeah, I mean, it's limited playable. It's not going to see play in constructed, and I don't think it's a slam first pick. Certainly playable though. Next we have Falcon Wrath Reaver, 1 and a red 2/2 common vampire creature. Now it doesn't look like much, does it? But believe it or not, I've done a lot of limited over the last few years and throughout my life, and 2 mana 2/2s with no downside in red. 1 and a red 2/2s, and with specifically upside in being with a relevant creature type. This card will be very good. This is kind of groundbreaking, actually. Like I said, I urge you to find me a common red grizzly bear, because red grizzly bears with no downside, I think, as far as I've seen or can remember, I don't think they exist. So this is a very cool card, and this will definitely be a good addition to the vampire tribe. Next we have Mind's Dilation, 5 and 2 blue for a mythic enchantment. Whenever an opponent casts his or her first spell each turn, that player exiles the top card of his or her library. If it's a non-land card, you may cast it without paying its mana cost. So this seems like a very fun commander card. I don't think it's going to see much of play at all in limited or constructed. It's too expensive. It doesn't impact immediately, and it is cool. I could see maybe some matches where it would actually have some pretty big benefit, but against aggro, it's too slow. Against control, it's too often going to hit. Well, I guess the cool thing is it exiles. It doesn't say you may cast it without it's paying its mana cost until end of turn. So that would tell me you can do it for the rest of the game. Let's see. I don't see anybody mentioning that. So maybe it doesn't do that, but I suspect that you can cast it anytime you want. I guess Nightveil Spectre says you may play cards exile as Nightveil Spectre. This is just saying, so maybe this is just when they cast the first spell each turn. If it's a non-land card, you may cast it without paying its mana cost, and that's it. So it just triggers whenever they do it. You get a choice right away, and then you either do it or you don't. It'd be cool if you could cast it for the rest of the game, but I suspect that you can't now. So maybe someone can clear that up for me. But so if you could cast it for the rest of the game, it'd be a pretty cool card. I still don't think it would be good enough for limited or constructed, but Commander, either way, it's going to be good. Next, we have Mirrorwing Dragon, 3 and 2 red for a 4/5 mythic dragon creature with flying, already fine. And then it's got an ability on top of that. Whenever a player casts an instant or sorcery spell that targets only Mirrorwing Dragon, that player copies that spell for each other creature he or she controls that the spell could target. Each copy targets a different one of those creatures. So immediate application that we see. Your opponent lightning axes your Mirrorwing Dragon. They have to lightning axe all of their own creatures, which is crazy. However, what's the bonus for you? Let's say you cast a Rush of Adrenaline on it. You get to target every single other creature you control. So it turns all your opponent's removal spells into removal spells for their own creatures, and it turns all your buff spells into buff spells for your creatures. I really like the design of this card a lot. This is going to be just an Omega Bomb in Limited, and once again, I don't think it'll make its way into Constructed, but amazingly powerful Limited card. Okay, next we have Grim Flayer, black and a green for a 2/2 Human Warrior Mythic with Trample. Whenever it deals combat damage to a player, look at the top 3 cards of your library. Put any number of them into your graveyard and the rest back on top of your library in any order. And then it's got Delirium. It gets +2/+2 as long as there are 4 more card types among cards in your graveyard. So this is a cool card. It kind of feeds its own plan, right? Because it's got Delirium. So it wants to be a 4/4 trample for 2 mana so badly. And when it deals combat damage to a player, which the trample will help with, you get to basically design the top of 3 cards of your deck however you want and put any number of them in your graveyard for Delirium for itself or other cards, and then maybe just feed yourself spells instead of lands. Very cool card, and because it's so cheap, this is definitely a card that could see constructed playability. Maybe one of the few Delirium cards that can. But yes, this is absolutely going to be a limited bomb, and I actually think this card could make its way into Constructed. I don't think that's super far-fetched. I guess the main problem being it doesn't actually generate card advantage, but it does increase your card quality, which is always a good feature. Probably not good enough for Constructed, mostly because it's so color-specific, being green-black. There'd have to be a good rock deck, but very cool card nonetheless, and I look forward to playing it in Limited. Okay, next we have Ride Down. Red and a white. This is a reprint. Red and a white instant. Uncommon, destroy target blocking creature. Creatures that were blocked by that creature this combat gain trample until end of turn. It's actually a very good combat trick. Main issue being that it's red and white. So unless red and white is quite a bit more supported with Eldritch Moon alongside Shadows over Innistrad, it just seems like unless you're in red and white, you're never really going to splash for it. It doesn't seem like a card worth splashing for, and it's a powerful card, but like I said, red and white is totally a playable archetype in Shadows over Innistrad, but I'm never like super stoked for it. And the fact this is an uncommon in the first 2 packs you're going to be drafting, maybe it'll happen, maybe it won't, but yeah, super limited playable, not going to see constructed play. Next we have Morn Willow, 1 a black and a green, 3/2 uncommon plant skeleton with haste. And it's got Delirium. When it enters the battlefield, if you have Delirium, creatures with power 2 or less can't block this turn. So possibly super relevant Delirium ability. I definitely think this suffers kind of the same fate that Ride Down does. You have to be in green or black to really want to really get some abuse out of this card, right? Or even play it. The thing is, green and black, in my opinion, is a much more supported archetype in Shadows over Innistrad than Ride Down is. So once again, it's sort of dependent on how good the archetype is in the entire format, this new format we're entering. But yes, I do anticipate Morn Willow being a pretty cool card. Just a 3-mana 3/2 haste without the Delirium ability is still good. Okay, next we have Mercurial Geist. 2, a blue and a red for a 1/3 flying spirit uncommon. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, Mercurial Geist gets +3/+0 until end of turn. It's once again another great blue-red spells card. Blue-red spells typically has you casting a couple spells in one turn, and I would say 7 mana or 7 damage flying in a turn on turn 5 is huge. So yes, I think in blue-red spells, this will be a very bomb card. Outside of that, obviously you're not going to be able to play it too much. Lashweed Lurker, 8 mana, uncommon Eldrazi Horror. It's got Emerge for 5, a green and a blue. And when you cast Lashweed Lurker, you may put target non-land permanent on top of its owner's library. It's a 5/4. So kind of a cool card. Definitely think it will see limited play. The problem is, like the red-white, not very supported is the green-blue. So green-blue is supported in Shadows over Innistrad. If you watch my drafts, you know I'm not a big fan of the archetype, but some people are. Some people have found success with it. So you're either casting this as an 8 mana 5/4 that puts a non-land permanent on top of its owner's library, or in green and blue, maybe paying quite a bit less. So in green and blue, I could definitely see this being very strong. The effect itself is very strong. It's like a more powerful mana war. Not only are you dealing with a non-land permanent, you are taking away their next draw step. So super powerful, and you're getting a win con on top of that. So yes, this will absolutely see quite a bit of limited play, and once again, we'll not see a lick of constructed play. Okay, next we have Crypt Breaker. 1 black for a 1/1 rare zombie with 1 black tap, discard a card, put a 2/2 black zombie creature token onto the battlefield, then tap 3 untapped zombies you control, draw a card, and lose 1 life. This is a great card. I'm a big fan of the zombie tribe. It's always been my favorite tribe, actually. I've always just loved the lords that the zombie decks got, starting with Zombie Master way, way back in the day. But even like Death Baron was a fantastic lord. Lord of the Undead was a fantastic lord. Cemetery Reaper was great. It just seems like the zombies have always gotten just great lords. So it's really cool to see the cheap zombies, the 1-drops, the 2-drops, like Relentless Dead, now Crypt Breaker. It's really kind of gratifying to see this, and ideally we'll see a zombie tribe deck, but it's so reliant on enough good zombies, and chances are pretty low that's going to happen. However, I like this card a lot, and I mean, besides seeing a ton of limited play, just the fact that it's 1 mana with it's a good ability. I could definitely see some sort of constructed deck possibly running this, and I don't think that's out of the realm of reason. Do you have to have a zombie tribe? The fact that it makes its own zombie tribe and then lets you start drawing cards is actually pretty cool. It does cost you a card in your hand, but I like this card a lot, and I think it possibly could see constructed play. I don't think that's impossible. I don't think it's super likely, but it's not impossible, and it's going to see a ton of limited play. Next, we have Incendiary Flow. 1 red sorcery. Incendiary Flow deals 3 damage to target creature or player. If a creature dealt damage this way would die this turn, exile it instead. So this is a kind of a common ability, right? Sort of a lightning strike ability. It's weird that it's sorcery. The fact that it's 2 mana and it exiles is most likely the reason why it's a sorcery. It's going to see a ton of limited play, and yes, this card is the real deal and definitely could make, and I think will make, constructed play as well. Okay, next we have sort of an exciting mythic. Deploy the Gatewatch, 4 and 2 white for a mythic sorcery. Look at the top 7 cards of your library. Put up to 2 Planeswalker cards from among them onto the battlefield. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. So it's sort of the maybe they'll, I forgot the name of it. The green, well, I guess it's sort of like Collected Company, yeah. I was going to say it was more like the trap card, Summoning Trap. But yeah, I guess Collected Company too. Pretty similar. Either way, it's a sorcery. It lets you look at the top 7. I have no idea how many Planeswalkers you would have to have in your deck to really reliably be able to hit 2 of them. But it's going to be a really fun Planeswalker Commander deck card. And as far as constructed play, not so likely. I think if there's a Planeswalker control deck, it could definitely see play. But I think you're going to, I mean, how many Planeswalkers would you want in your deck? You'd probably want at least like 12, right? 12 Planeswalker cards at least. And you probably want more than that, to be honest, if you really want to reliably hit 2 of them. But a cool card, a way to cheat out Planeswalkers. This is pretty revolutionary. And it's a mythic, so very cool card. Obviously not going to be limited playable at all, just because the chances of you getting 2 Planeswalker cards are so nil. And then even if you do, I mean, what are the chances they're in the top 7 of your 33 remaining card deck, you know, if it's in your opener? I guess if you have like 27 cards left, if you can play it, you get what I'm saying. Either way, not limited playable. At best, constructed playable and very build around. So a narrow mythic, but a cool card. Okay, next we have Soulless Soul. 1 and a white, 2/1 flying spirit. Sacrifice Soulless Soul. Creatures you control gain indestructible until end of turn. This is a great card. This is a very powerful card. I don't think people will immediately realize how powerful this actually is. In limited, it's absurd, right? Because you're already getting a 2-mana 2/1 flyer, which is good. But then in any sort of board state where there's a ton of potential trades, you just get to sacrifice this, and then all your guys win all of the trades. So that's insane defensively and offensively. On top of that, for constructed play, it protects you against the planar outburst effects. Now, granted, it doesn't protect against Languish, but it totally protects against planar outburst. So this is a great card. This is both for limited and constructed. I think this is a really nice card. Okay, new Liliana. Here we go. Liliana the Last Hope. 1 and 2 black for a 3 loyalty Liliana Planeswalker. It's got +1 up to 1 target creature gets -2/-1 until your next turn. -2, put the top 2 cards of your library into your graveyard, then you may return a creature card from your graveyard to your hand. And then she has -7. You get an emblem with, at the beginning of your end step, put X 2/2 black zombie creature tokens onto the battlefield, where X is 2 plus the number of zombies you control. So her emblem is actually really cool. I didn't immediately understand it, but even if you have no zombies, which, you know, probably a good chance you don't have any zombies, you get at least 2. So it's X is 2 plus the number of zombies you control. So at the beginning of your first end step, you get 2 zombies if you have none. At the beginning of your next end step, you get 2 plus 2, right? So you get 4. Or do you get 6 after that? Wait a second. Now I'm confused again. So the first turn you have no zombies, right? You get 2 plus the number of zombies you control. X is 2 plus the number of... Okay. So the next turn you get... you would get 4, so you'd have 6 total. Yes. And then it keeps getting... It scales like that. Okay. Very cool. Great card. One kind of big problem with it. Actually, so if they board wipe at the beginning of your next end step, you still get to rebuild. You get 2. Okay. Very powerful emblem. Her +1 is, you know, pseudo protection a little bit. It protects you, protects herself. It can potentially kill something. It's pretty good. Her -2 is, you know, it's not a reanimate. It's just a raise dead effect. But I actually like this Planeswalker. I didn't like her at all the first time I saw her, but upon second reading, she's kind of growing on me. Her emblem is going to take quite a while to get going, but overall, she's fine. I mean, absolutely going to see limited play. Will she see constructed play? Possibly. It's, you know, most of the time, this strikes me as more of a control Planeswalker, but her -2 is not much of a control Planeswalker ability. So It's cool that she feeds Delirium in Limited, but I don't exactly know what deck is the right deck for her in as far as Constructed goes. But Limited, yes, you're going to play Liliana. You're going to first pick her. Okay, next we have Oath of Liliana. 2 and a black, rare legendary enchantment, finishing out the Oath cycle that we saw in Oath of the Gatewatch, right? When Oath of Liliana enters the battlefield, each opponent sacrifices a creature. At the beginning of each end step, if a planeswalker entered the battlefield under your control this turn, put a 2/2 black zombie creature token onto the battlefield. So what I like about this Oath is you play a planeswalker and it immediately gets a little bit of protection in the form of a 2/2 black zombie creature. And it comes in and makes your opponent sack a creature, so it's even got limited playability outside of having any planeswalkers in your deck, which I think all the Oaths did. So, cool card. I like this. It's going to see limited play. Is it going to see constructed play? It's probably not as good as some of the other Oaths, but it certainly has the chance to make constructed. Okay, next we have Nuh Falija Academy. Uncommon land card. If a spell or ability an opponent controls causes you to discard a card, you may reveal that card and put it on top of your library instead of putting it anywhere else, and it taps for colorless. Now, I actually like the effect. The problem is Transgress the Mind exiles. Does not cause them to discard, but it does work against, your duress effects. I think the main problem with it is control decks, which seem like the main deck that would want a card like this, really don't have a ton of space for colorless lands typically. I know my control deck certainly doesn't, right? I've got to make space for my mana generating land that name escapes me at the moment, and Blighted Fens and stuff like that. So yes, whereas I think the ability is cool and unique, especially on a land and especially at no cost, just the cost of not being able to tap for colored mana is actually just downside enough, sadly, against most decks. Plus, you need to have it out. So, your opponent plays turn 1 duress, and you're on the draw. And even if you were on the play, do you really want your first land to be Nuh Falija Academy? So, it's a cool card. And like I said, it's really cool to see it on a land. I think Commander is going to love this card. It seems like another great Commander card. Just because they're always kind of hunting for cool, utility lands. Okay, next we have Vereinter Widerstand. Yes, that is not in English, so let's do this. United Resistance. 1 and 2 red sorcery with Escalate 1. We know Escalate is you get to pay the cost of the Escalate, and then you get to basically choose however many modes that you're escalating to. So for 1 and 2 red, you can, with an Escalate of 1, target player discards all cards in his or her hand, then draws that many cards. United Resistance deals 4 damage to target creature. United Resistance deals 3 damage to target opponent. So this is absolutely going to see limited play. This certainly has the chance of seeing constructed play for like a burn style deck. The Searing Blaze style effect is very powerful. I like that it, on top of that, for 5 mana, you can just discard all cards in your hand, draw that many cards. So if you're sandbagging lands, gives you some nice increase in card quality, and then you can deal 4 damage to a creature and nuke your opponent for 3. This card's very cool. I like this card a lot. Very powerful, rare. Certainly going to see a ton of limited play, and certainly, I think, going to see some constructed play too. I don't know why it wouldn't. Seems good enough to me. Okay, next we have Ishkana, Graph Widow. 4 and a green, legendary spider, mythic creature with reach. It's got Delirium. When it enters the battlefield, if you have Delirium, you get 3 1/2 green spider creature tokens. Ooh, a little shout out to spider spawning, which was in original Innistrad. And then we have 6 and a black. Target opponent loses 1 life for each spider you control. So this card's really cool. With Delirium, this card is really difficult. If there's anything I remember about spider spawning, 1/2 reach creatures are way more annoying than you'd think they are. They block so well. That 1/2 makes a huge difference. So this card is fantastic. Certainly first pickable. It's going to be a real tough card to beat, I would say, in Limited. And will it see constructed play? I doubt it. It's really tough to evaluate 5 drops. This one just does not seem to have enough impact to possibly make constructed, but limited, it's going to be a bomb. Very cool card. Okay, next we have Providence. 5 and 2 white sorcery, rare. You may reveal this card from your opening hand. If you do, at the beginning of the first upkeep, your life total becomes 26. And then the effect, if you cast 7, is your life total becomes 26. So 7 mana, go from 1 life to 26. I guess that's best case scenario, right? Or best case is it's in your opener. You go to 26, your opponent gets you all the way down to 1 life, and then you cast it and go back up to 26. Doesn't seem like it's going to see a lot of play. Cards that just simply change life totals, unless that life total is your opponent goes to 0, probably not going to see a ton of play. But a cool card nonetheless. Maybe someone can explain the rationale behind 26 because it escapes me. All I can think is it's 2 13s, and 13 is kind of a number we've seen a lot throughout Innistrad and Shadows over Innistrad, so maybe something to do with that. Next we have Spirit of the Hunt. 1 and 2 green, 3/3 rare wolf spirit with flash. When it enters the battlefield, each other creature you control that's a wolf or a werewolf gets +0/+3 until end of turn. This card's obviously very good. It's going to see a ton of limited play. Likely not going to see any constructed play unless there's a real... I don't know. I just don't expect there to be a wolf or werewolf deck. But yes, this is a cool card. It's going to be a very, very big bomb in limited. And even if you don't have a supported wolf or werewolf deck, just a 3-mana 3/3 flash is good. So I like it. Next we have Summary Dismissal. 2 and 2 blue instant. Exile all other spells and counter all abilities. So counter all abilities. So someone activates an ability of a permanent and then you counter it. Or you exile a bunch of spells on the stack. But so I guess if there's a couple spells on the stack and someone using an activated ability, well, it also counters triggered abilities too. I mean, the card's very versatile. I think it certainly has a chance of seeing constructed play, especially since it can counter triggered abilities. Very Stifle-like effect. I wonder if that's one of the cards they have on there. No, it's not. But Void Slime is. Okay. It's a cool card. I like it. Someone compared it to Time Stop. I don't think it's quite that, since Time Stop, ends the turn and all that. But yeah, as far as limited play goes, most of the time it's just going to be a 4-mana counter spell. If you're paying 4 mana to counter an activated ability of a permanent, you're really not doing it that much. You're not really killing it. So not expecting to see this very much limited play out of this, but constructed, yeah, maybe somebody's got some tricks up their sleeve for this one. It basically is a counter spell that counters uncounterable spells too, which I'm noticing is kind of like a trend now, which I don't like. I don't like the exile a spell. If a spell can't be countered, it shouldn't be able to be countered, in my opinion. And I know you're going to say, but it exiles, and that's the point. But to me, it kind of makes pointlessness out of the uncounterable effect, in my opinion. Okay, next we have Turnaside, which is also a reprint. It's 1 blue instant, common, counter target spell that targets a permanent you control. Good sideboard card in limited. Maybe in constructed too. Probably not, but in limited, mostly it's just going to be a sideboard card. But a cool card, nonetheless. It could be main deckable too. No one really expects it. It's just a bit narrow. Okay, next we have Tamia, Field Researcher. So got another Planeswalker here. It's Bant colors, 1 a green, a blue, and a white for a 4 loyalty Tamio Mythic Planeswalker. +1, choose up to 2 target creatures until your next turn. Whenever either of those creatures deals combat damage, you draw a card. -2, tap up to 2 target non-land permanents. They don't untap during their controller's next untap step. And then -7, draw 3 cards. You get an emblem with. You may cast non-land cards from your hand without paying their mana cost. So all cards you have for the rest of the game are free. Very cool. I think a lot of people like this card a lot more than I do. I'm going to give her a more fair shake this time around. Her +1 is actually more versatile than I initially thought. you think, yeah, I just choose 2 of my creatures, and then when they deal damage, I draw cards. It's sweet. It actually goes deeper than that. Not only can you do that to your creatures, you can do them to your opponent's creatures. So say your opponent wants to kill Tamia, which I'm sure they desperately want to do. Choose 2 creatures that can attack her, then they kill Tamio, you draw 2 cards. So in that case, Tamio is 4 mana, absorb some damage, and draw some cards, which is very good, and reminiscent of old Tamio, might I add. Tap up to 2 target non-land permanents. So this time, unlike Tamio, they can't keep a land tapped down, which I noticed they're strayed away from just because it's so obnoxious to play against. Tamio is oof. I don't miss playing against Tamio, the original. But yes, I'm going to give this card a better rating than I initially did. Obviously, the downside is it's 3 color, so it's very narrow what decks can actually play this card in Constructed. In Limited, also, same problem. I mean, you have to play at least 2 color plus a splash to make Tamio work. So, powerful card in Limited and Constructed. Just powerful card in general. It's mana specific, and it kind of is it's not necessarily a build around Planeswalker. I just don't know the best place for us. It seems like a creature heavy deck is going to want this the most, I guess. But then I feel like you're not abusing the emblem to the full extent. But either way, cool card. Okay, next we have Wailing Ghoul. 1 in a black, 1/3 common zombie. When it enters the battlefield, put the top 2 cards of your library into your graveyard. So it's kind of like the blue card, the Scab, which oddly enough they don't have on here. I was expecting. It's funny they linked to Sultai Skullkeeper, the non-zombie version of the card I'm thinking of. I want to say it's like Stitch Scab or something like that, but it's the same thing as this Sultai Skullkeeper, except a zombie instead. Yes, this card feeds Delirium. It's a good blocker. 1/3 body is fine. It's an irrelevant creature type. I like this card. This is certainly going to see limited play. No Constructed. Okay, next we have Reprint. Prey Upon. 1 green sorcery at common. Target creature you control fights target creature you don't control. This was very highly playable. Prey Upon was actually the first green fight card, I believe. Someone, don't necessarily quote me on that, but I believe it was. And this is really where they were like, behold, the new green, removal mechanic fight. And I like this card a lot. Prey Upon's great. It's odd to me that they have in Shadows over Innistrad Rabid Bite, which is the new green one-sided. It's new to green. It's been in red before. The new one-sided fight spell. So we see one-sided fights in green, but then they're shifting back, and they're like, no. We can have both. We're gonna have both fight and one-sided fight effects in green. So that's interesting. It's kind of a cool take. So there's gonna be like the obviously weaker version in Prey Upon, and then the upgraded version in Rabid Bite. So take your pick. Next we have Peace of Mind. 1 in a white, uncommon enchantment. 1 white, discard a card, you gain 3 life. So a madness enabler that also can keep you alive. Could this... I'm actually thinking, is there any way this could see Constructed play? Probably not. I'm just thinking of some control deck that wants to stay alive against aggro, but you still have to discard a card, so no. It's sort of a build-around limited card as well, since white usually doesn't interact all that much with madness. I mean, there's certainly no madness in white, as far as I know. So you're going to have to pair it with madness colors, whether that be red or... yeah, wait, what are the other madness colors? Blue. I guess blue-white maybe could do some cool stuff with this. Yeah. Other than that, not a super exciting card. Okay, next we have Distended Mindbender. 8 mana, 5/5 rare Eldrazi insect with Emerge for 7. When you cast Distended Mindbender, target opponent reveals his or her hand. You choose from it a non-land card with converted mana cost 3 or less. Wait a second. Are we back at... Oh, I think we're actually back at where we left off, are we not? I believe we are. I'm not sure if we are, though. Let me see. We definitely did Lone Rider. We definitely did this. I'm trying to think exactly where we left off. I'm pretty sure we read these. Definitely remember this. Definitely remember this. I can't. The difficult part is I can't remember if I read these on stream or if I read these in the last volume, but I'm pretty sure that I did. I think we ended up back where we left off with the Distended Mindbender. I think Peace of Mind was the actual last one. I might be wrong on that. I guess I'll do a jump cut and I'll check real quick. Okay, we're back. I guess I was wrong. I think I confused the time I read these on stream. So I have read these before on stream, but I'm going to read them now in the continuing spoilers. So let's do this. Distended Mindbender, 8 mana, 5/5, emerge for 7. Target opponent discards a non-land card with converted mana cost 3 or less, and a card with converted mana cost 4 or greater. It's a cool card. I like that you can cheat it out. You can get really good value out of it. A 5/5 on top of getting 2 cards out of their hand. So I think, see, the problem with these cards is, in terms of constructed, is that they're just too difficult to get out. Emerge doesn't strike me as an ability that's going to be highly constructed playable. But maybe it will be. Maybe I'm wrong, and there's some way that you can get a bunch of value out of Emerge and constructed. But as far as limited goes, this card seems great. I mean, if you can rip 2 cards out of your opponent's hand and get a 5/5, you're probably winning that game. Does it exile them? No, they just discard them. So okay, very good and limited, and possible constructed. I mean, if anyone of the Emerge cards is going to make constructed, the one that takes 2 cards from their hand of your choosing, up to 2, I should say, this one could be it. Next, we have Collective Brutality. 1 and a black sorcery, rare. Escalate, discard a card. So if you discard a card, you get these additional modes. Target opponent reveals his or her hand. Choose an instant or sorcery card from it. They discard that. Target creature gets -2/-2. Target opponent loses 2 life and you gain 2 life. So more often than not, I would say you're going to be doing the first 2 modes, right? You're probably going to be looking for an instant or sorcery to make them discard and giving a creature -2/-2. So I like this card a lot. This seems like it definitely will also see some constructed play. I don't know how it couldn't. 2 mana is all you're really paying, right? I mean, discarding cards is still free. So very cool card. I like this a lot. And yes, I do think this will see some constructed play and absolutely will see limited play, especially as a kind of cheap madness enabler as well as delirium enabler. Next we have Evenwald Captive. 1 and a green, 1/2 defender. Tap, add a green to your mana pool. You can pay 7 mana and transform it, and it turns into Evenwald Abomination, which is a 4/6 Eldrazi werewolf that can tap for 2 colorless. So it's weird seeing a werewolf with defender, but I really like this card a lot. Mana Sink's activated abilities are great for werewolf decks because they allow you to keep your mana busy while flipping your werewolf. So yes, this will see a lot of limited play as a mana ramp card. Will it see constructed play? Honestly, it has a chance to, just because it's an actual ramp creature with some pretty good late game ability, being able to kill your opponent, but not super likely to see constructed play. But definitely will see a lot of limited play. Absolutely. Next we have Em Racal's Evangel. 2 and a green, 3/2 rare human horror creature. Tap, sack it and any number of other non-Eldrazi creatures, and you get to put a 3/2 colorless Eldrazi horror creature token on the battlefield for each creature sacrificed this way. Not a huge fan of this card. You have to sacrifice it when you use its ability. I can't think of a ton of times you're going to use this unless you're just upgrading creatures. So maybe someone sees something I don't. I certainly think it's playable as a 3 mana 3/2 with potential ability and limited. I guess if your opponent's going to remove it and other creatures or a couple other creatures with removal spells, you can sack it and those creatures and turn them into 3/2s. Doesn't strike me as a super versatile ability, but it's probably one of those cards where I'll play with it. More likely I'll play against it and I'll be like, oh yeah, that card's actually better than I gave it credit for. So we'll see. Next we have I assume Stromkirk Mystic. It says Stormkirk here. 2 and a red vampire horror creature with trample. When it deals combat damage to a player, exile the top card of your library. Until end of turn, you may cast that card. This is a really cool card, and it's got madness for 1 in a red. I really like this card a lot. Red, this is my favorite red sort of card advantage ability. The exile the top card of your library. We've seen this before. Until end of turn, you may cast that card. Just, I love the chaotic nature of this type of red card draw. So I'm a big fan of this creature, and the fact that it's got madness is really nice too. Pretty pretty cheap madness cost on top of that. Red trample creature, which they did with Prophetic Flame Speaker. Big fan of this card. I definitely think this is first pick material. Definitely red card advantage. Okay, next we have Whispers of Em Racal. 1 in a black, sorcery, uncommon. Target opponent discards a card at random. And then Delirium, they discard 2 cards at random. So it's Hymn to Turak if you have Delirium. So obviously Hymn is, vintage, legacy playable. Maybe not vintage. Maybe it is vintage, actually. I don't know. But it was legacy playable. So yes, this card is very cool. If you can reliably get Delirium, making your opponent discard 2 at random is insane. We're going to see a lot of this played in Limited in Delirium decks, and it's going to be a nightmare to play against. In fact, I could totally... This absolutely has the potential to make constructed play. That's how good Hymn to Turak was, where even if you have to enable Delirium to make it Hymn to Turak, that still is likely doable. Next, we have Grapple with the Past. 1 in a green, instant, common. Put the top 3 cards of your library into your graveyard, then you may return a creature or land card from your graveyard to your hand. I like this effect in green. This is kind of cool. I love that it fills itself for its own ability, right? So, yes, you have a chance to miss, but if you're not hitting a creature, you're pretty confident you're going to be hitting a land. So, I don't think you miss too often. I think this is actually just going to see a ton of limited play. I really like this card a lot. I really like that it's instant speed. Once again, it might actually be a card that could make constructed play, depending on if there's Reanimator decks or not. But or if there's some sort of just a Delirium deck, the Whispers of Em Racal deck, perhaps. But yeah, this card's very cool, and expect to play against it a lot in Limited. Okay, next we have Murder, a reprint. 1 and 2 black, instant, uncommon, destroy target creature. So great card. Always has been a great card. It's uncommon now. Originally in core set, it was a common, but it's a really powerful spell. 3 mana, instant speed, deal with anything. Great card. Constructed and limited, you're gonna see it. Lupine Prototype. 2 mana, 5/5 rare wolf construct artifact creature. It can't attack or block unless the player has no cards in hand. Unfortunately, this card is terrible. I mean, unless you can just rip all of the cards out of your opponent's hand and never let them sandbag. So maybe the Lupine Prototype Creeping Dread deck is a thing. No, unfortunately, this card is just too terrible to play, both limited and constructed. So don't expect to see much of it. Maybe in the Alex Stephenson rare draft for Eldritch Moon. Probably going to have to see it then. Next we have Eternal Scourge. So it's a 3 mana rare Eldrazi horror creature. You may cast it from exile, and it becomes a target of spell or ability, and opponent controls exile it. So you can keep bringing it back if it gets exiled. It is a downside, because every time, if they have a creature with an activated ability that can target it, they can just keep exiling it. So doesn't seem fantastic. It's good against removal spells. If they target it with a removal spell, it gets exiled instead, and then you can cast it from exile. So it's a 3 mana 3/3. I don't think it's a slam first pick by any stretch of the imagination, but it's a cool rare. Certainly limited playable. Probably not constructed. Next we have Eldritch Evolution. 1 and 2 green, rare sorcery. As an additional cost to cast it, sack a creature, and then you get to search your library for a creature card with converted mana cost X or less, where X is 2 plus. This, I'm noticing this trend here. Another card with X2 plus, like we saw in Liliana emblem. Plus the sacrifice creature's converted mana cost. Put that card onto the battlefield and shuffle your library. So you basically play this, sack a creature, upgrade that creature to potentially 2 plus whatever the converted mana cost of that creature is. So I like it. Tutor effects are typically very powerful. I mean, yeah, Natural Order was the kind of more broken example. And Birthing Pod was still an example that was actually, I guess, turned out to be kind of broken. And Green Sun Zenith, which wasn't broken, but fantastic. So, yes, I absolutely think this will... actually, this has a higher chance of seeing more constructed play than limited play, since you have to sort of have something worth finding in limited to really want to play this card. But yes, constructed-wise, I definitely think Eldritch Evolution will find a home somewhere. Potentially. Next, we have Geier Reach Sanitarium. It's a legendary land. It's a rare. It taps for a colorless, and it's got 2 in tap. Each player draws a card, then discards a card. So, obvious madness implications in this format. Outside of that, not terribly exciting. So, yes. Will it see constructed play? Probably not. Will it see limited play? Yeah, not a ton. So, not a super exciting legendary land, but certainly playable in the right deck. Next, we have Worf Infiltrator. Not Worf from Star Trek. Hold on. 1 in a blue, 1/1 rare human horror with Skulk. Whenever it deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. If you do, discard a card. And whenever you discard a creature card, you may pay 2 colorless. And if you do, put a 3/2 colorless Eldrazi horror creature token on the battlefield. So I really love this card a lot. I'm looking forward to playing with it. Skulk, so it's evasive. It's got 1 power, so it's almost assuredly going to hit your opponent most of the time. And then you get to draw a discard, so it feeds its own second ability, right? Because then you can discard a creature and pay 2 and get a Eldrazi horror. But on top of that, if you have other discard outlets, you can also find other ways to discard creature cards and pay 2 and get 3/2 colorless Eldrazi horror. So I really like this card a lot. This is a great card for limited. Will it see constructed play? You know, honestly, it could, as crazy as that sounds. The fact that it's like a looter... that, like I said, almost assuredly hits your opponent because of the Skulk. I definitely think this could see constructed play. Not super likely, but it's going to see a lot of limited play. Okay, next we have Decimator of Provinces, a 10-mana Eldrazi Boar creature. Emerge for 6 and 3 green. When you cast it, creatures you control get +2/+2 and gain trample until end of turn. It's got haste and trample itself. So yes, it's like Craterhoof Behemoth, as the thesaurus suggests. It is worse than Craterhoof Behemoth in my mind. But yeah, you emerge it. Kind of the problem with emerge on this one is you want as many creatures as possible. So you don't really want to sacrifice a creature. But maybe there's certainly times where sacking a creature to make it cheaper is going to end the game, and it's going to see a ton of limited play. Will it see constructed play? I mean, Craterhoof Behemoth did, so I don't want to discount this card, the Decimator of Provinces. Provinces is spelled wrong, too. So yes, this could totally see constructed play, and it'll see, like I said, a ton of limited play. So very powerful card. I mean, a 7/7 haste trample, right? How do you stop it? It's big. It's a big boar Eldrazi. Okay, next we have Harmless Offering. 2 in a red, sorcery, rare. Target opponent gains control of target permanent you control. Unfortunately, this is such a build-around card that I don't know where you're ever going to see it. Someone pointed out that its tail is a snake head, which is kind of weird. So it's not so harmless, is it? Yeah, not going to be really constructed or limited playable as far as I'm concerned. Maybe some sort of commander deck. Puka's Mischief or something along those lines. I don't know if that's even the right card. Next we have Stromkirk Condemned. 2 black, 2/2, vampire horror. Or maybe Zeldrew. Is it Zeldrew? I don't know Commander that well. Whatever that weird creature is that you like draw cards equal to how many permanents your opponent's controls that you own. That sort of thing. Stromkirk Condemned. 2 black for a 2/2 rare vampire horror creature. Discard a card. Vampires you control get +1/+1 until end of turn. Activate this ability only once each turn. This card's fantastic. This with Call of Bloodline is going to be just a house. This with any sort of vampire-themed limited deck is also going to be very, very brutal to play against. It also happens to be in the Madness color, right? So, yes. Stromkirk Condemned is legit. Expect a lot of that to be played in limited. If a Vampire Tribe deck ever breaks through again, harkens back to the old Vampire Nocturnus days, This could definitely be in that deck too. I think it's powerful enough. Omega aggro. Okay, next we have Valdarin Pariah. 3 and 2 black, 3/3 vampire horror. Rare creature with flying. Sacrifice 3 other creatures, transform it. It's also got madness for 3 black. And it turns into Abolisher of Bloodlines, a 6/5 flying. When this creature transforms into Abolisher of Bloodlines, target opponent sacrifices 3 creatures. So yes, that is quite brutal. You have to sack 3 creatures, but you make them sacrifice 3 creatures when it transforms, and it's a 6/5 flyer. So yes, I'm just going to see a ton of limited play. Do not expect to see it in Constructed. Okay. Next we have Smoldering Werewolf. 2 and 2 red, 3/2 uncommon werewolf horror creature. When it enters the battlefield, it deals 1 damage to each of up to 2 target creatures. And then if you pay 6 mana, you can transform it into a 6/4 that when it attacks, it deals 2 damage to target creature or player. This card is fantastic. I really like this card a lot. I love that it comes in and can either finish 2 creatures off that we're in combat and weren't expecting to die, or just kills 2 X1s. This card is fantastic. This is going to see an absolute metric ton of limited play and seems like a very easy first pick a lot of the time, to be perfectly frank. Awesome card. No constructed play for this one, though. Next, we have Vilden Pack Outcast. 4 and a red, 4/4 common werewolf horror creature with trample. 1 red, it gets +1/-1 until end turn, and then you pay 7 and you can transform it. So I'm seeing a trend here, some pay mana to transform Transformers. Robots in Disguise. Drone Pack Kindred is what it turns into, a 5/7 trample. 1 colorless, it gets +1/+0 until end turn. So inflatable with trample, obviously good. Front side, it's a 5 mana 4/4, not as good inflatable. Still just going to be a fantastic. And it's part of the werewolf tribe as well. This is a fantastic. So far, I'm just really impressed with these werewolves. This is definitely going to see limited play as well. And a lot of it. 5 mana 4/4 trample is already good. And the fact that it potentially can deal 7 damage trample just on the front side to your opponent when attacking is also very good. Next, we have Kessig Prowler. So 1 green for a 2/1 werewolf horror uncommon. Already impressed. 5 mana transform it into a 4/4 that can't be blocked by more than 1 creature. Both sides of this are great. This is a great aggressive werewolf creature. I like it a lot. It's weird to see this type of transforming, though, rather than the, no player plays a spell thing. But believe it or not, this actually works really well with those werewolves, right? Because now you can invest your mana to transform this, not play a spell for your turn, and then transform all your Shadows over Innistrad werewolves. So the werewolves from this set are going to interact fantastically well with the werewolves from the first set. Believe you me. Next we have Elder Deep Fiend. 8 mana 5/6 Eldrazi Octopus creature. It's a rare. It's got Flash and Emerge for 5 and 2 blue. And when you cast it, tap up to 4 target permanents. This card's great. Once again, not going to see constructed play, but I expect to see a lot of limited play. Tap up 4 target permanents a lot of times in the late game where I expect you to cast this, or even the mid game. Tap up to 4 permanents can very easily mean you win the game. So yes, this card is great. Flash too, a little surprise blocker with possibly a reduced casting cost with Emerge. Yeah, this card's going to lead to some blowouts for sure. Next we have Soul Separator. 3 colorless artifact rare, 5 and tap, sacrifice Soul Separator, exile target creature card from your graveyard. Put a token onto the battlefield. It's a copy of that card, except it's 1/1. It's a spirit in addition to its other types, and it has flying. Put a black zombie creature token onto the battlefield with power equal that card's power, toughness equal that card's toughness. I really like what this card's doing flavorfully. You're sucking the soul out of something. They're becoming a zombie creature that still maintains the physical attributes of whatever it was, but just a husk. And then the spirit has all of the abilities. Is that right? Yeah, it's a copy of that card, except it's a 1/1 spirit. So it retains all the abilities and types and stuff like that. And then it gets the power and toughness transformed into the zombie. So I don't think this is super limited. Well, it's playable and limited. It's just not. It's a little bit clunky. It's certainly clunky. But this is a cool card. Definitely could see this in Commander as sort of a cool, and maybe some constructed play as a kind of clunky res card. But yeah, I mean, this certainly can see some limited play as well. I just don't think that it's like a slam first pick or anything. Next we have Genialer Scab, 2 and a blue, 2/3. Oh, it's not in English. I was like, that's a weird word. Ingenious Scab, 2 and a blue, common zombie horror with prowess, and then pay a blue. It gets +1/-1 until in turn. This card is deceptively good. 3 mana, 2/3, prowess, already good. That inflatable ability, even though it's +1/-1, is really good alongside prowess, and it's a relevant creature type. I expect to see this play a lot in limited and be very deceptively good. Next, we have sort of another deceptively good card, Haunted Dead. 3 and a black, 2/2, zombie uncommon. When it enters the battlefield, you get a 1/1 white spirit creature token with flying. So that's cool. You get 2 bodies, one of which is evasive. So those cards are typically very good and limited. And then on top of that, you can pay 1 and a black and discard 2 cards and return it from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. However, the spirit will not be tapped. Keep that in mind. So yes, this will also see a lot of limited play. I like it a lot. Cool card. Do I like it more or less than Ghoulsteed? I guess that's a good question because they're kind of similar cards. I probably like this more. I like to get 2 bodies, 1 that's evasive. Yeah, it's a cool card. I don't know how early we're going to be picking this, but we're certainly going to be picking it if we're in black. Okay, next we have Gisa and Geralf. Or Gisa and Geralf? Gisa and Geralf, I guess. 2, a blue and a black for a 4/4 mythic human wizard, legendary creature. When it enters the battlefield, put the top 4 cards of your library into your graveyard, and then during each of your turns, you may cast a zombie creature card from your graveyard. So, if you're playing it as a 4-mana 4/4, that feeds your delirium, it's okay. It's not bad. If you actually have some zombies to play from it, very good card. Very difficult card and limited to beat. Will this see constructed play? Probably not. I don't anticipate there being enough zombies for this to make the cut. But cool card nonetheless, and certainly playable and limited. Next we have Bloodhall Priest. 2, a black and a red for a 4/4 rare vampire cleric. When it enters the battlefield or attacks, if you have no cards in hand, it deals 2 damage to target creature or player, and then you can madness it out for 1, a black and a red. So, kind of a cool card. I like it. No cards in hand, you can work towards that. It's a vampire. It's a relevant creature type. And attacking and nuking stuff is good, right? So, yes, this card is very, very limited playable. And I expect this to end some games in vampire tribal rather. Okay, next we have Curious Homunculus, another transform creature. 1 and a blue, 1/1 Homunculus uncommon. Tap, add a colorless to your mana pool, but you can only spend it to cast instants or sorceries. I know what deck wants this. Little blue-red spells. And then at the beginning of your upkeep, if there are 3 or more instant or sorcery cards in your graveyard, you can transform it. And then it turns into Voracious Reader, which is a 3/4 Eldrazi Homunculus. With prowess and instant or sorcery spells you cast cost 1 less to cast. This is a great card. I really like this card a lot. I'd love to see this make its way into Constructed, and I think it's actually possible. I totally think it's possible this could see Constructed play. It's certainly going to see limited play. It's just you really have to have enough instants or sorceries, like I said, to support it. So pretty limited to the blue-red or maybe blue-black spells deck. Okay, next we have Graft Stapler. 1 colorless rare equipment. Equipped creature gets +3/+3. When equipped creature attacks, it doesn't untap during its controller's next untap step, and then if it becomes unequipped from a creature, sacrifice it. So, does that mean sacrifice the stapler, or sacrifice the... I'm assuming it means creature. Sacrifice the creature, which would make more sense. But still, this is going to work really well with Vigilance, definitely, because then your creature's never going to untap, or never has to tap, so it don't have to worry about the downside of this card. It's just a super efficient equipment at that point. That being said, I don't anticipate playing a ton of this in Limited, mostly because, although maybe it's good for your... It's good as, like, buffing up a card on defense. Yeah, maybe I will play more than a fair amount of this card in retrospect. Like I said, certainly good with Vigilance. Okay, next we have, this is probably the last card, I think, right? Yeah, then we're back at where we left off. So, and maybe I already read this one. I don't think I did, though. Tree of Perdition, 3 and a black for an 0/13 Mythic plant creature with Defender. Tap, exchange target opponent's life total with Tree of Perdition's toughness. So this is the new version of Tree of Redemption. Tree of Redemption actually did seem more limited play than I thought it would, and I think this probably is going to be maybe the same deal. Actually, this might seem more. This might be more playable and limited than I'm giving it credit for, but I mean, the problem is once they have less than 13, you're never going to want to really use it. I feel like there was a lot of switching around with Tree of Redemption, but with this, I guess if your opponent can gain a bunch of, let's see. Yeah, I don't know. It's a little bit complicated, but if they have less than 13, you're not going to want to swap it, but maybe you've already swapped it. But then if you've already swapped it, it's probably an 020, so why would you want to swap it back? Yeah, it seems like it just... oh, well, it does work with Triskaidekaphobia, so there you have it. Deck is built in. Perfect. It's your... it is your Triskaidekaphobia combo piece. The beginning of my upkeep. Triskaidekaphobia trigger on the stack. Exchange life total. There you have it. All right, well, deck is built in. Sorry this went a little bit long. I hope you enjoyed it. I don't know how many more spoilers we have. This looks like a very fun set. I always say that. How could a new set not be fun, right? Yeah, this definitely looks like a lot of fun. We saw some really cool cards here. Seems like most of the cards are playable. I don't think there was was there a single card I went through? No, there were a couple where I was like, that's probably not very limited playable. But for the most part, it seems like most of the cards are fantastic and limited. And quite a few constructed playable cards, I think. At least worth speculating on for constructed. So hope you enjoyed it. Feel free to comment. I love to read those. Also subscribe to my YouTube channel. If you're not already subscribed, please like this video to help me get some more visibility on it. And come check me out on Twitch and drop me a line. Let's chat. Saturdays, Sundays, Mondays. I am on pretty early to mid to late afternoon. So see you then. You can check all of that in the video description as well as Volume 1 once again if you haven't already watched that. Thank you so much, guys. Have a good one. We'll talk to you soon.